I have around 13 years of experience in software industry, that too mainly into test automation. And from past 6 to 7 years, I am into trainings as well. Okay, so this is a short introduction from my side. Okay, yeah. So let me start with the question, what is this automation all about? Anyone?
Yeah, it's just to reduce the manual effort. We write a code that helps to automate themselves to, kind of uh,
Okay.
saving the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. So replacing the manual efforts, correct. So what else?
So automated test can be re-executed multiple times.
So,
For
okay.
consistent result.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. I do not know your name. So who is this speaking?
Uh, Amresh here this side.
Amir.
Amresh.
Amrit. Okay. So Amrit, so I am only talking about automation, not our testing. Okay. So just talk about automation. Think about it.
Uh,
So
so
somebody said
so
replacing the manual efforts. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
so repeatability, like we can re-execute it multiple times since we have automation script. So we can use that script for multiple times
Correct. Okay.
and
Agree.
coverage. Allow testing more scenarios
Mhm.
on multiple browsers simultaneously, we can say, or multiple environment, like we have test driven
No,
production
no, that's what
environment.
I said. I still did not jump into testing. I am still at the automation. So automation can be any work, right? Any task or any work that replaces the manual efforts. When I get into some mechanical industry, okay. So when I did my engineering, I attended some what we say, like the technical tour. So wherein we went into some tile manufacturing company. Okay. So, and I was not even aware that there is so much of things that were automated. I mean, the machines have already replaced, humans, right? So to carry the tiles from destination, I mean, from source to the destination, right? So they use robots. So now the process which is involved there is to transfer the tiles or transport the tiles from destination one to destination two, right? So within the factory, such that again they can load those tiles into the trucks and then those can be dispatched to the destinations. So now this entire process, I can just see like there is very minimal presence of humans. Okay. Any task that replaces the manual efforts. So we can call that as automation, right? Agree on this part?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? So now when we agree to this, there are certain, I can say like probably what I could call like the parameters, okay, using which we can talk about the profit. Okay, everything is related to money, right? Why we automate? We automate because it would save our efforts, right? Altogether, the end goal is to save the efforts, to save the money. Okay, so if you say like I have automated something, okay, I'm not talking just about the test cases, just about the automation. So what kind of automation we have in our industries? One is the test automation at the applications level. And the other one is about the process automation, wherein you have, what is that? Have you all heard about DevOps?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what they do? So they automate the process, right? The agile process. So whatever deployment process, the mechanism, the code commits, that we wanted to do into the repositories, and then maintaining of the pipelines, and then setting up the new environments, right? Set up an environment, and then again, once our work is done, they would also deprecate it, right? Likewise. So whatever processes that are involved in our day-to-day agile mechanism, so DevOps team, that's like development and operations, right? So why we call them as DevOps team? Because they handle the process automation altogether at development and as well as the operations side. What are the things that come under operations? What are the stuff that come under development?
You write a code and then make it convert the text format into the package, for example .msi or .exe using Maven, and then you deploy it into a server and then download and then put it into QA and then deploy it. So then take customer feedback. So these are all development ends at just before testing. We are automating using various tools. And ops is all about setting up the servers, copying an image of another server using Docker. Then we can also see the performance of CPU using different tools like Grafana or things like more of a provisioning and post-provisioning.
Somebody is talking about Grafana. Yes. So yes. So what is this? I mean, somebody talked about Grafana. Okay. So the end-to-end agile process. So very first thing. So that is development, right? The very first phase, probably, I mean, there are certain other phases as well before the development, but let's start with development work. So somebody is developing based upon the requirements, right? So I can say like the requirement gathering or requirement analysis as the very first phase, but still, let's go with development itself. We already have the requirements with us, and then we are into the agile, right? So now what happens? So somebody would develop some script or code, okay? And then what they would do? They say, that means the developers, right? So they say, so development is complete, right? And now they want this code to be pushed into some environment such that our testing team, can progress with testing, right? So test team, if they need to progress with the testing, so what it need to be, this development code has to be pushed into certain environment such that we would be able to access it, right? So now what happens? Dev can happen probably in local or in the dev environment. In the similar way, now we would have a test environment. So within the test environment, QA team, right? They would start testing. Now what happens? So post our testing, so we are the gatekeepers. We are called as gatekeepers. Gatekeepers for what? So you have a QA environment. After that, you have some other, higher environments. I don't want to get deeper into this, but I would call them as higher environments where client can also access them. Client or stakeholders. Right? Now, when it comes to automation, you have within QA, you have manual testing and automation testing. Right? Agree? So QA has manual testing and as well as automation testing. Correct? Agree on this part?
Yes.
This is about with respect to testing. So the automation that we do with respect to testing. Again, when it comes to test automation, you might have various other kinds of testing that are involved. Probably UI automation, API automation, right? And then security testing, non-functional testing. So all these can be automated, right? So it is not just about UI. It is not just about the API. We will get into these details like what is this UI automation? What is the API? Why we come up with this kind of various, testing, and as well as considering them for automation as well. Okay. So now these are various kinds of testing that can be done in automation. This is with respect to test automation. I would call this as test automation, right? Specific to some project, correct? Now, when we call the DevOps here, where is their presence? So somebody developed the code. Okay. And they want to push it into higher environments. Now, whose help is required here to push the
DevOps.
changes? DevOps, right? So again, once it is deployed into QA, right? And now we start our testing, we complete our testing. Again, we want to push these changes into higher environments. Whose help is required?
DevOps again.
DevOps again. Okay. And now from here, again, there are so many other stuff apart from this code push that DevOps would do, right? So it is about your end-to-end pipeline maintenance, right? So maintenance of these pipelines related to each of the code bases. So they would do it. And then there are certain items that they do at operation side as well. What are those? The constant monitoring and alert, right? And then the dashboards for health checks of services. When I say services, it's microservices or the APIs, right? So like this. So they go ahead and automate your entire end-to-end process. So now why I am talking about DevOps as well here a bit, we will see that. Okay. So they have both, their presence at the dev level and as well as at the operations level. Okay. Until the time these requirements, whichever are developed, are completely tested. So unless the QA team says, go ahead with the deployment to the higher environments, so no team is authorized to push the new changes into the higher environments, right? When I say higher environments, let's talk like production. So no code would be pushed to the production unless QA says go. I mean, QA gives the go ahead, right? They are the gatekeepers, right? So they need to complete their testing and then go ahead with this. Now what happened within our testing? So initially there is no test automation. Nobody was into test automation, okay, in the initial days. So it was all through manual. Okay. So somebody said they used UFT. Okay. So previously UFT is called as QTP, right? So now from here, so what I would do, like we had manual testing, right? Initially. So now people came up with various phases of testing within manual testing. So it's only manual. They had only few test management tools. It is not even cloud, right? It is test management tools. One of the test management tool like HPALM, probably some 10, 15, 20 years ago, people used to use only HPALM. That was also called as HP, I guess, QC, Quality Center, right? Previously, it is HPQC. So now what happened? people used to have their test plans, okay, and with respect to various phases of testing, okay, and they used to execute them manually. So now what are the phases of testing that we have? What are the various phases of testing?
Maybe unit testing and then integration, system, followed by acceptance testing.
Okay. So somebody said unit testing. Okay. Unit testing and then
Integration testing,
right. Okay.
system
What else?
system level testing,
System test. And then
acceptance UAT.
okay. And then
Regression and smoke testing.
yeah, regression testing. We'll talk about other phases like smoke and sanity as well. Okay. So what are these? I mean, these are the various phases of testing. Now within this, you would have multiple levels of testing as well. Maybe something like alpha testing, beta testing, pilot testing, right? User acceptance testing. Again, within your this one, like the testing types you would have, like functional testing, non-functional testing, black box, gray box, right? So these are all various types of testing again. So there are testing levels, there are testing types, and as well as test phases. So now what you do with the unit testing? What do you do with the unit testing?
It is done at the code level.
Code level. Somebody said code level. Okay. So what we do? So we test writing itself. What we do? We test some
For the
units
correctness of the code, probably.
of code. Correct. The correctness of the code. So whatever logic we have implemented, let's say a plus b. So a plus b should always give the sum of those two numbers, right? So 2 plus 3. So whether it got 5 or not, that's all they will test, right? The piece of code. But when we integrate this code to other major code, so again, there we don't know. The unit testing phase, we cannot confirm whether the piece of code that I have written would be working with all other existing code base or not, right? So that is the unit testing. So they will take those small chunks of code and then start testing them. Okay, when I say they, who are those? I mean, who is that they? Whose scope is this work? Unit testing.
Dev.
Developer.
Correct. Scope is at developer level. Okay. So developers are authorized to come up with the unit testing. So because they know their code, right? Whatever code they write, so they know it. So that's why they are the ones who need to consider to actively participate in this phase. Sorry. So this is not in our scope, right? So let's right now forget about this, right? So next is integration testing. So who would be doing this integration testing? Testing team?
Tester.
QA team?
Testing. Yeah, testing.
Right. QA team. So what we do in this integration testing?
Here actually small units we verify together, right? To make sure like everything.
Correct. So that is what we test. We basically test the interactions between integrated components. Maybe you have 5 to 6 components which talk to each other and we want to test that integration. So the interactions between the various components within the system, within the entire system, right? So we would do that using integration testing. So what kind of testing you would do here? Do you do functional or non-functional? What kind of testing would come under this?
Functional testing.
What about non-functional?
Yeah, it can come.
No,
Non-functional also.
It would come, right? Non-functional as well. We do both functional and non-functional, but majority of the time, UI may not be involved. The UI testing, the actual UI testing may not be involved. So we mostly depend on APIs. We'll talk what these APIs are further, but for us, so we would do functional testing. We would also do non-functional testing as well here. And like within non-functional, again, security testing and performance testing. So all are these, all these tests are incorporated at integration level itself, right? So now post this, we jump into system test. To whose scope it is? QA team. So what kind of testing they would do?
Product
Here
as a
you
here
would
we are
do
testing as a whole application, entire thing
the
is testing.
end-to-end testing. Accessing the UI, you would involve each and every component, and then you start testing the component based upon your requirements, based upon various kinds of test data. All this, what we say, permutations and combinations we would pick, and then we would test the end-to-end flows, right? We would test the end-to-end flows. So this is something done at the system testing level. So entire whole system is involved here, right? So that is how, sorry, system testing would be done, right? And then we have acceptance testing again. So who would do this user acceptance testing or acceptance testing? Is it again QA team?
Yeah.
Is it QA team?
No, the client side.
Yeah. So in most of the cases, this won't fall under QA scope. So this would fall under client or stakeholder. So it always varies. If at all you are working in a product company, it is your stakeholders, because your product, the end product would be used by the clients, but stakeholders are the one who come up with certain requirements, right? And then they push those requirements to product owner, and product owner would come with the refinement of those requirements, and then we start our journey with development and testing, correct? So now, what about this client? So when you have certain service companies where they would have, some other company as a client, sorry, some other company as a client, and then client side, some manager would sit, right? So now the requirements and all would be flowing through that client manager, engagement manager, and probably they would sit and test, right? So that's how it works, acceptance testing. So this is nowhere part of QA team. Okay. So now when it comes to regression testing, what is this regression testing?
Here we are just making sure like existing functionality is not breaking while like adding new features and all.
Right. So what happens? So let's say we are doing the integration testing and system testing. This is in our scope, right? These two phases are in our scope. Let me bring them down. Okay. So what I can do? One is integration. The other one is system. So this is what we do as a QA team. So we performed our integration test, we performed our system end-to-end test, all this manually. Right? All of this we did manually. Now, what we do at the time of regression? So what are the scenarios that we would bring in into regression? So regression is the phase where you would consider, let's say, release 1. In this release, I have 3 stories that I pushed. Okay, I did my integration testing, I did my system testing. This is the very first release. So probably for first release, whatever system tests I have, probably I can recheck all of those, and then I push these 3 stories into the production. Okay, this is got released into prod. So now next release 2. So when I come with release 2, where I have 5 stories, that means 5 different changes, right? That would get into the prod. So this time what happens? These 5 stories I already tested with my integration and system testing test cases. So I come up with those test cases for, the integration phase and the system test phase test cases. All these 5 we would come up with, right? So now we tested them. Now what happened is we actually in our phases of testing, we only tested these stories, right? We just tested these 5 stories which are as a part of the release getting into the product. Getting into the prod, right? So now what happened? There are some existing requirements, no, already built. System is already built. It is there in the prod, right? It is there in the prod. So the release 1. So this has 3 different stories, 3 different requirements which already went into prod and those were successful and running without any issues. Let's say I pushed these changes and then I had impact out of 3 stories, 2 stories impacted, right? 2 stories impacted. That code base related to this got impacted. So what happened here? What happened here? There is some disturbance that was made by this release 2 for the release 1 items. Ideally, it shouldn't do that, right? Agree on this part?
Yes.
So
Yes.
our testing with respect to integration and system, it was done only with respect to these 5 stories which were scoped for that particular release. So who would ensure that the other 3 stories which were already pushed to the prod are not failing or do not have any impact due to these new code changes, right? So that's the confirmation which again QA team should provide. So that is called the regression testing. So what we do, we would consider the scenarios that were not part of this release 2, right? Stories. So the current stories anyway, you have tested them. You have signed off them, stating those were properly working, right? So now let's say I got release 2. Sorry. Release 3. So in the release 3 again, so I got 10 stories this time, which went into prod. But before going into the prod or the higher environments, what I need to do? I need to consider the test cases related to release 1, release 2 as a part of my regression. And then I keep testing those scenarios as well. So do we require to consider all the scenarios? Let's say these 3 stories contain 25 test cases. And this release 2 contains 35 test cases. So do I need to consider all the scenarios for retest or for the regression testing?
Yeah.
Do we need to consider all of them?
Or we can ask
Not
the impacted
necessarily.
areas. Yeah. We can
Yeah,
ask the
so
impacted
not
areas and then.
necessarily. That's what. Yes, correct. Somebody said impacted areas. So what we do? We need to identify what is the impact that this 3 story is going to do. That means, let's say my product is a healthcare product and I have something like this: case creation and view case and then team assignment modules in my product. So now when I am trying to release this release 1, so I have impact on case creation. Okay, that's fine. We anyway tested integration system for the first time. When we did, we anyway run for all the modules. So those went into it. Now next I added, I mean the next modules, right? Like what was that? Something like workflow, and then probably batch run, okay, of transactions. So these 2 I have added into the system. So now what happens? So when I try to add this code, at the same time, a tester would also try to get the details, what kind of impact these 2 would do for the previous release items, right? So that impact analysis should be done. We need to reach out to the developers. We need to reach out to the product owners. Don't go by developers. This one, like whatever they say, you don't go by it. Okay, you shouldn't trust the developers. That is the first thing, right? Basic first thing which a tester need to have, right? That would be a basic characteristic that you need to have. So it is like we need to reach out to the product owners, we need to reach out to the developers both, and then technically evaluate what are the other modules like case creation, view case, or team assignment that would be impacted due to these new changes. Let's say they identified stating like case creation and team assignment. These both were impacted. So what you would do, you would quickly go into your system testing, that is your end-to-end test cases, right? And then bring in the case creation related test cases and then the team assignment related test cases as a part of your regression scope, right? So now in this entire process, so we are just doing manual testing, right? I mentioned somewhere here. We were doing manual testing all together, right? In all these phases, correct? So now when we were doing this manual testing, so somewhere down the lane, so it got, if it is a product or any other service company who is working on any products, so ultimate thing is directly or indirectly, people would work on development of a product. So when you have such a huge teams and huge development that would happen, so probably you would have multiple releases, right? One after the other, correct? So now when you plan these kind of multiple releases, one after the other, so don't you think your regression scope would increase? It will increase, right? It's obvious,
Yes.
right? Now let's say my regression test case that I keep adding the end-to-end test case into my regression scope every time. So those were somewhere down the line around 500 tests. So when there are 500 plus test cases that I need to execute, don't you think I need more resources, manual resources here, right?
Yes.
And now when it is manual, then I am thinking about the impact analysis. So what is that impact analysis? It is nothing but risk based only. No, you are taking that risk. Okay, only case creation and team assignment were impacted. So I would just consider these 2. I would omit view case. Later on, once it is once it went into production, probably they might have some issue at view case. Okay, and that means you missed it, right? You did not scoped it at all. This view case is not scoped. So when this particular module is not scoped, the test case is related to that module. So defect automatically would leak into the production, right? Correct or not? So this is where now when you have this regression scope keep increasing and as well as manually to work. So probably for executing all these test cases, 500 test cases, it might require huge time and as well as many resources as well. That means my cost is high, right? Correct? Costing is high because more resources are required to execute. And then, as somebody said, this is a repeated task. Once in 15 days or once in 20 days based upon my sprint timeline. So I have to keep doing this regression testing. Correct? Accept it. It's a repeated task.
Yes.
That's why somebody thought about automation. So somebody said, why can't we automate this? So let's start with our automation. Why can't? Right? So this question has what we say, like this question has evolved into various automation tools in market, testing tools, right? So various automation testing tools. So now within that, if you see Selenium, we have Selenium, we have UFT, we have test complete, right? And we have playwright, we have what else? There are few more automation tools. Anything other than this that you remember?
Sikuli X ID.
Sorry, you're breaking.
Sikuli X.
Didn't get you.
Sorry.
I mean, your voice is breaking. Is it only for me?
I don't know.
He
You are
said about
audible to me.
Sikuli.
Sikuli. Sikuli. Sikuli.
We have Cypress, we have APM, we have Puppeteer,
Okay.
Catalan.
Okay, Securely X you are saying. Okay.
Yeah,
It's an
yes.
open source automation tool
Sorry,
again.
I wasn't
Okay.
clear probably.
No problem. Securely. Okay. Securely X it is. And then again, we have Cypress. Yes. One more. And something else? Somebody said.
APM,
No, don't go to mobile and all. So let's.
Puppeteer,
Sorry?
Puppeteer.
Puppeteer. So
Yep.
that's again, Puppeteer is for, I mean,
One more tool
it's
is
again like
Catalan
headless
Studio.
execution for,
Yes.
I mean, right? So
Yeah.
for Chromium, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So Puppeteer.
Catalan Studio.
So Ketlon. That's again one more prominent, no? How could I? Ketlon Studio. Okay. So all these were some of the automation tools. There are many others. I mean, some cloud-based tools are also available in the market right now. So if we need to discuss, we would have lots of list, right? So now, when it comes to this automation, so somebody thought, why can't we automate this? And then in the initial days, this UFT, right, which is called as QTP, Quick Test Professional. So this was the tool that we had. I mean, down the lane, somewhere around 14 years, 15 years ago, when I started my career. So at that time, we had very minimal scope, right? Minimal reach, that is QTP. So even Selenium was not in the context. Okay. So in the context, we only have Quick Test Professional, which is of HP, right? And then it is also licensed. not open source. So that means it involves some costing again. Correct? So what is that? Why? I mean, the major thing that we wanted to reduce is what? By doing automation, what we wanted to reduce? We wanted to reduce our efforts. In turn, it would reduce our costs, right? Correct, no?
Yes.
Yep.
So then HP anyway, they levy huge costs for involves huge cost for licenses. We need to buy the licenses. Accordingly, then we would be able to work with those tools, right? Not just UFT, there are other tools as well, which are licensed versions, right? So I just took example of UFT or QTP, which is a prominent tool in the market. Okay, one of the prominent tools. So now, so in this fashion, when the automation is penetrating into the market, then came some market disruption. That is with Selenium, hero of the day, right? Selenium came into picture. So what this Selenium does? So they said this is open source. Right? When somewhere in and around 2004, I guess. Okay, somewhere around 2004 or 5. So somebody thought of having some Java based library. Okay, I mean not Java based, probably JavaScript library, which can automate the web browsers. Because the UI automation for the web applications, it was it was pretty simple even in UFT or the QTP, but it involves costing and they do not want to put the cost into their bucket. So what they did, they just had, they in the sense, the company, which company it is? ThoughtWorks. Have you heard about ThoughtWorks?
No.
Yes? No? ThoughtWorks? Anyone heard?
No.
Okay. So one of the prominent consultant from ThoughtWorks, he created this Selenium. So initially he named it as Selenium Core. Okay. So he named it as Selenium Core, and it is totally a JavaScript library for automating the web browsers. Okay. And later on, in the very next year, they came up with an integrated development environment and they released it into the market, saying that this is open source. So from 2005 onwards, we have Selenium. Before that, we never had any open source tools in the market. So this is the first and foremost, what I could say, like a prominent tool that is an open source. Okay, I mean package, not even tool, the package. So it is an open source package. And then most of the people, whoever are using this HP licensed version, they started migrating to Selenium. Okay. So mostly, I mean, not even this migration was peaks in the initial days, because the evaluation, there is, for any tool there would be some evaluation, right? So it evolves, evolution happened, and then somewhere around 2006, okay, 7, 8, okay, somewhere around 2008, I guess. So from 2008, probably 2010, probably I could remember it, 2010 or 11. So what happened is we got Selenium WebDriver. So this evolution happened. We'll talk about the evolution in the next session, but this evolution happened and we got Selenium WebDriver. This is the current version which we use, Selenium WebDriver, right, for automation. So this came into the market and this has disrupted it like anything. Why? Question is why? Again, why there is a market description? When you already have some tool like HP QTP, which is prominent in the market, and most of the applications they used to get automated tested using HP QTP. So during that time, so Selenium, it came as a big bang into the market. And most of the people, they started migrating their scripts from QTP to Selenium. Why?
It's an open source and
It's an
Open
open
source.
source
free
version.
of cost, easily
Correct.
available.
Easily, readily available, open source. Then
For QTP, lot of costs involved. That is
correct. Costs involved. That is fine. That is one of the factors, no? But probably even if costing is involved, that is fine for them, right? Costing
Yeah,
might be one of the parameters, but if the automation that we are doing is what we say, like if it is promising, most promising, right? Probably people may not move from QTP to here, right?
Yeah, so QTP was supporting both web and Windows. During that period, only all our applications started moving to web-based.
Correct.
So
Fine, but it supports no both web and Windows. What's the problem?
yeah, web and Windows it support, but market is coming up with a free or it's a open source and freeware, right? So obviously people will try to explore on it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can
in that
consider
way
it.
people migrated to, and one more thing is UFT supports only VB scripting. Selenium is supporting multiple languages with irrespective of the skill set, right? It supports multiple languages like C Sharp, Selenium, Python. There are a lot of libraries which we can use, but UFT supports
Okay.
only VB scripting.
Right.
And
Correct.
yeah.
That is one of them. Okay, one of the other reasons. So the reasons for this migration that prominently happened is one thing is about the cost that anyway I already mentioned, like it is licensed and it requires expensive licensing, right? The other one, some other person right now, he mentioned like Selenium supports multiple programming languages. So it has some, it is not having that kind of a specific language binding that we need to, right? We can use Java, we can use Python, we can use Ruby, C Sharp, any other languages, JavaScript as well, right? So in order to use Selenium. The third one is about the multi-browser support. So when we have these web applications, so web applications, we never know, like somebody would use Chrome, somebody might use Internet Explorer, somebody might use Edge, some other person might use Safari, right? I do not know the client system, like which browser is installed and through which browser the client might access it, right? So now during that QTP phase, so I guess it runs only on the Internet Explorer. Okay. So though the evolution happened from QTP to UFT and then there came some other packages, some other additional plugins that they have given such that they can support for multi-browser or Chromium and other stuff. But whatever that evolution that was happening in that period, right? With respect to the web applications. So that is something which was cached by Selenium. So the Selenium guys, I mean the people from the ThoughtWorks, so what they did, they have considered all these challenges, whichever are there in the licensed versions at that point of time. Somewhere down the line, somewhere around 2006, 7, 8, right? So, sorry. So they just have this as well in mind and they implemented it. So multi-browser support is something which people were prominently looking for. At that time, there is no Chromium. Okay, so even it is just, I mean, if you have Chrome, it is your script should work on Chrome. If it is Safari, you need to again have your separate what is that installable or the package that you need to download for Safari. If it is Edge, you need to download a separate one. Likewise, Edge itself did not take birth, no, by that time. So Edge was a recent one. So Internet Explorer. So again, Internet Explorer, it would have its own separate package that we need to install, right? Likewise, even for Selenium, but Selenium already they have given this multi-browser support. And compared to QTP, generally the Selenium execution speed is little faster. Okay. And then if costing is involved, license is involved, anyway, we would get the dedicated support from the support team, right? But though the Selenium is open source, now they have successfully established a large community. I mean, people started attracted towards Selenium, right? So they all just simply started moving to Selenium, everyone. And now the main prominent thing that happened is almost some billions, I mean, some millions of applications were running on Java at that time, right? If you remember, it is Java and .NET. These are the two prominent, languages that are being used at that time. And most of the like larger cake is from Java, right? Maybe we can say like 80% of applications they run on Java, even the web application. So they run on Java. So now the developers and even the prominent language at that time, it was Java. So all the developers, all the automation testers, whoever have this Java knowledge, right? Or whoever is ready to acquire that Java knowledge, they all switch it to Selenium. So that's where this, the migration was prominent at that time. And then the integration, right? So now what happened? They had also one more challenge, that is your reporting. So for us, reporting is the very basic thing, right? That's the main thing. So based upon the test execution report only, we would say how many passed, how many failed, and how many defects are there, and whether to go ahead with the release or not, right? So that's very critical thing for us, for the QA, right? For the QA team. So heart of the QA team would be the test execution report, though you do it manually or automation, right? So that is something again. They have come up with some seamlessly popular testing frameworks like JUnit, TestNG, PyUnit, um, NUnit, MS Test, right? So all this. So these are prominent frameworks which were also released for easing our test reporting activity. So that's also one of the reasons why people started moving into Selenium, right? Clear on this? Clear? Any
Yeah.
questions still here?
See, one more thing. Actually, I was thinking like it's a
Mhm.
open source, but anyhow, like
Mhm.
company has to pay, right, to Selenium.
Which one? No,
No, any
not
corporate,
required.
if they want to use the Selenium, like they have to pay something, or it's
No, no, no,
completely
no. It
free?
is totally free. Totally free. Open source itself means free. You do
Okay.
not have any costing involved because there won't be any dedicated support. But you have a huge community who can support you, right? In the internet. So most of the people they would be working on this. That's where. So even see there are some. I mean, do you think that Selenium is something which has addressed all the key issues? No. But the prominent challenges at that time, when I say that time, it is about 2004, 5, 6. So during those years, whatever prominent challenges that we had, so those were addressed by Selenium. That's why people moved into it. Now, post that again, we had many, I mean, we have many other automation tools as well, no, in the market. So what the other tools try to do, say, if you see market strategy would be in, like this. So Selenium came up with certain features. So it has certain features. Okay, what else? So maybe Selenium again execution, though it is faster than QTP, but it is much slower to invoke the test scripts every time. And as well as there are certain other challenges as well with the Selenium. Okay, we will down the line discuss on them as well. So, so considering those parameters, then some other product, let's say like Playwright. So Playwright, again, it's an open source, Microsoft supported or the Microsoft sponsored tool. So Playwright, they came up with certain solutions, right? So instead of, by using Selenium, probably we might require to create more methods in order to use them in our automation scripts. But probably Playwright, so it may not require those many methods and features into it. So it started addressing certain items that Selenium missed, right? So likewise, each and every tool has its own importance and its own pros and cons. Okay, it's all about our project. Based upon the project, based upon the resources availability, based upon the tool stack that the resources experienced with. So accordingly, we would go with the tool and the language. Let's say I have my team who knows Java. I cannot force them and then say like, okay, we are not using Selenium Java. We want to use Selenium Python. You go and do automation in Selenium Python. I cannot say like that, right? Either I need to plan for certain training for them for some time frame and then ask them to work on Selenium Python. In case if you feel if we do with Selenium Python, there is some advantage. Unless there are other parameters which showcase us certain advantage in order to consider some other language. So I cannot force the team because my team has Java knowledge already and Java is supported by Selenium. Let's go with Java Selenium, right? In the similar way, if some other team is working with C# Selenium. So most of the .NET projects, so they work on C# Selenium. So if they are working on they run on C# or ASP.NET or the .NET framework. So obvious for me to go with C# Selenium rather than going with Java Selenium and again searching out for resources, additional resources, right? Likewise, that is one of the parameters again during the tool selection. So we will discuss further in the next class. Okay, next session. So let me know if you have any questions. So I would stop
have
here.
a quick question to you.
Yeah.
So this framework, right? Framework is used only for reporting?
No.
What else it can be used for?
So framework, when you say the reporting framework, is it TestNG or
TestNG and JUnit.
TestNG framework.
Okay. TestNG framework.
TestNG, NUnit, these frameworks are here for us in order to facilitate our test execution process. Okay, we will talk in depth regarding this soon in the next sessions where you would probably understand it, why we need a framework. So you need to organize your items, right? So when I say organize, let's talk about our file system within Windows. So even Windows has that thing, right? Like organizing the files. You would have a drive, within a drive you had a folder, within the folder you would have multiple files. In the similar way, even for us, in order to organize our execution, so we need certain frameworks. We take help of those frameworks and then we would execute the test and then generate the test results.
Okay, basically to organize our test, we need a framework.
Yes. We to organize and as well as to organize our what we say like test data, to organize our scripts, to organize our test execution, to organize our generation of the report, right? Test report for all these things. So it handles that end-to-end organization of your test automation.
Okay, fine.
So others, Pankaj, Bala.
Yeah.
And you told me to you told me to Selenium open source. What is the security for the user?
Security, good question. So what is the security for the user? So Selenium doesn't store any of your product related details, right, into it. It's just a library file, a jar file that you would have. That's all. Right. So what?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
a doubt. So it's a generic question. So
Uh,
how long the session will be going on? What is the duration of this course?
1 hour for every
No,
day,
no.
and mostly it would be somewhere around 45 to 50 hours, of course.
45 to 50 hours. So it
Yes.
will be 45 to 50 working days it will be. And whether as part of this course will be covering the C# basics and
Yes.
or
Yes.
in that.
We would. So we would cover C# basics. We would, I mean, it's there, no, in the course details, which I have provided. So everything would be covered here.
Sorry, I joined a little late today.
Oh, okay.
And
No,
one
no.
more thing is,
I mean, in the course details itself, so I have given all the topics that would be covered. Okay, so everything would be covered here with respect to the DevOps, with respect to the test architecture, with respect to the frameworks, with respect to the C#, with respect to what is it? The execution from the pipelines, generation of the reports, integration of the reports again. Like though TestNG and other frameworks give some basic reporting, so we would also support for. I mean, we would also use certain additional test reporting packages like Allure, extend reports, integrate them while executing from the pipeline and generate the test reports in the Allure. Yeah, so all that like end to end.
so for CI/CD, we are going to use Azure DevOps.
Yes.
Okay, fine. And one more question, it is a request kind of stuff, because you know, right? Recently, all the because of daylight saving time things got changed, right? So is it possible to move this course to 9:30 to 10:30? Because if you see
Maybe
earlier, it
for
was
the
working.
initial days, let's go with 9 to 10. And later on, once I have that, even I need to um, attend some other meetings right now, okay, from my office. So once I get that slot free up, so I would definitely would try to change it based upon, again, the team's feedback. If all the students are available, then I'm okay with it.
Yeah, so how long it will take to decide? Because very clear, it's today also I missed the session because of the meetings. So I
Okay.
joined after 9:30 only, that's why I asked.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So
If you can give very tentative date, right? It would be helpful.
tentative date probably in next week. I can get back to you.
Or next week you can get. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
somebody asked about the security thing, right? Selenium security. So see, when it comes to this security thing, so Selenium ideally uses a HTTPS protocol. Okay. So that is again like whatever requests you are sending. So we would anyway talk about this in the Selenium architecture in detail, but on a high level, I am just telling you, like there are certain potential risks. Okay. I do not say like there are no risks at all, but we try to mitigate them using some other ways. Okay, so we will discuss on this in the upcoming sessions. Yeah, so somebody asked
Okay.
about it, so that's
Yeah,
why.
yes. Me only asked that. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'll stop the session here. Okay,
So tomorrow same time or
same time. It would be same time for this week at least. Let's go in with the same time. And based upon your feedback, if you are all are okay to move it, then from the next week probably I can do that. Okay. Once the batch is finalized, then we can also decide on, the timings. That's why I said it would be next week. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.